What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Unhinged Talk Live. As usual, I'm your host, Patrick Hansen. We got a very special guest today, the man, the Yankees content king, Derek, NYY recaps. Call him what you'd like. How are we doing tonight, Derek?
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm pretty happy, man. It's been a good day. We got Gardner back, and we've got Clint Frazier starting in left field. So we'll see how long that lasts.
Yep.
So, but otherwise,
hopefully,
good day.
Hopefully a little bit longer than I'm anticipating. But shout out to everyone in the chat. Daniel, Aiden, Lori, CJ, Nuclear Yanks, Pistol P, Griminator, Dirt Bike Nation, Hater, Benji. Yep. Shout out to everyone currently in the chat. Listen, very special episode tonight with Derek. I think we want to start things off, though, talking about Brett Gardner. I know I went on a little bit of a rant yesterday. You guys love when I rant about Brett Gardner. But I kind of want your opinion on the signing, Derek, because going into the offseason, I personally thought that this was a given. As time went on, I assumed that the likelihood kind of went down. But I was kind of surprised yesterday, not going to lie. What do you think?
I think the Yankees kind of flexed their muscle a little bit with Gardner because, he made $10 million last year. He didn't want to take a 60% pay cut. He wanted probably $7 or $8 million. And the Yankees said, we'll give you $3 million. They settle on $4 million. And the Yankees just said, basically, we're going to go out and get better. And if you want to join us, our price is $3 million. And then he came back at the last minute. He said $4 million. And they said, okay.
I have a conspiracy theory about the whole thing. You ready to hear it?
What's that?
So I just an idea in my mind. I assumed that in the beginning of the offseason, Yankees made a behind-the-scenes deal with Gardner. They're like, look, we want you back. You want to come back. However, we're going to make all of our moves this offseason. And then at the end, when we're all done with everything, we're going to see how much money we have left over. And then we'll give you whatever is kind of left. I think that kind of makes sense.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily a conspiracy theory, but it is something that Brian Cashman would do, right? So a couple of years ago, I don't know if you've read the book Inside the Empire.
I started reading it, yeah.
They were talking about how when they were trading Brian McCann, Brian Cashman basically went up to him and said, hey, look, we've got to deal you for, all reason A, B, and C. Where do you want to go? Where do you not want to go? That type of thing. Yeah. So Cashman probably had a thing with Brett Gardner where he said to him, look, Brett, you're a big part of this team. You're a clubhouse leader. We want you around. We want to give you the chance to retire. Here's our situation. We're going for that 28th championship. We just lost 2 members of our rotation. We've got to fill in. We've got to add to the bullpen. We've got to take care of these things. We've got Clint Frazier for left field. So to come back, you're going to have to do it at our price. And I promise you, we'll make it up to you on the back end. We'll give you a sweet job when you retire. You can come to spring training as an instructor. We don't get charged with that. We'll pay you $1 million a year for the next 5 years or something, and that's the arrangement they made with Gardner. And I'm sure that, if Gardner was really worried about it, you would have seen rumors that he was negotiating with other teams because he still had a little bit of value last year, and somebody would have taken him for $3 or $4 million. So that's just kind of my opinion. I'm sure they were straight with him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know if this is I don't think that it's an unreasonable fear, but I'm afraid that we're going to encounter a situation where Brett Gardner gets ample playing time, especially if we see Clint Frazier off to a slow start and Gardner's red hot, right? Because we kind of saw this at the end of the season last year going into the postseason. Clint was cold, Gardner was hot, Gardner had more playing time once the playoffs came. I think that the only reason I didn't want Brett back is because he's the only other depth outfielder that had the potential to take away Clint's playing time. And listen, I'm sure you could agree with me when I say this. Clint is an all-star caliber left fielder, right? And I think that even if he does slump, you just need to let him continue getting those at-bats. I mean, if you replace him with Gardner, I think it just defeats the whole purpose of everything. And that's kind of my main fear at this point.
Look, anytime that Brett Gardner starts and Clint Frazier had a good day the day before, fans are going to throw a fit on Twitter. I've been watching baseball a long time, and that's going to happen. It won't be the first time that that's happened, but here's how it's going to go down. Clint Frazier is going to play in probably 130 to 140 games. He's probably going to miss some time here and there for little bugaboo injuries. Assuming he doesn't have any injured list trips, Gardner will probably play 30 or 40 games out there in left. And then you've also got to get guys like Tauchman in the lineup occasionally. I think you might see Frazier be able to slide over to right field to give Judge a day off once in a while. So that's a way to keep his bat in the lineup. But you still want to give him a little bit of time here and there. And, I think Gardner's going to probably get plenty of playing time, but I don't think that they're going to make the conscious decision to sit him down for an extended period and give it to Brett Gardner anymore because, Gardner's obviously done after this year and Clint Frazier's been so good. He's earned it. And you don't want to cool him off either.
Do you think he's obviously done after this year, though?
Well, they do have an option. So they have that mutual option. It really depends on how this year goes. If he has a year like 2019 where he hits 270 with 28 bombs or whatever it was, he's probably not done. But I don't see that happening unless Frazier gets hurt. So we'll see.
I'm just kind of confused because looking at the Yankees offseason, so far, because listen, they might not be done, but I'm assuming they're done. But they kind of went after a lot of outfield depth. Socrates Brito, Greg Allen, Jay Bruce, even Derek Dietrich plays the outfield a little bit. So it seemed like they were preparing for Brett Gardner not coming back. That's why as the days went by, I was assuming he wasn't coming back. So now that leads me to believe what happens to these guys? What happens to a Mike Tauchman? Because now Brett Gardner essentially takes his spot. I don't believe Tauchman has any options left either. So it's a very confusing situation that I think Brett Gardner coming back might create more problems than the Yankees would have had without him.
I think there's a move coming because they still don't have officially Justin Wilson on the roster. They haven't cleared that spot. So now you got a clear spot for Wilson and for Gardner. I think at some point right before pitchers and catchers report, you're going to see Cashman make his final move. I don't know what it's going to be, but it would not surprise me if somebody like Mike Ford gets moved because you've got Andujar who can play first base and third base. They want to give him more at bats this year, and they're going to work on that in spring training. Honestly, if you can field at all, you can play first base.
Yeah.
And he can play a little deeper because he's not going to have to rush a throw. He's only going to have to beat the runner to the bag. So I think Andujar fits nicely as your backup first baseman. Do you want to get rid of a lefty bat? No, but Ford doesn't bring a lot other than he's left-handed. You might see them move somebody like I can honestly see them moving a Tauchman. Cashman said he got a lot of calls on Tauchman. It really depends on what names are being attached to those calls. Are they going to get a minor league arm? I would love for Cashman to get the next Chad Green and Justin Wilson, or Luis Cesar, whoever, somebody of that ilk who you don't see coming.
Yeah.
So I can see him making a move like that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation because, we were kind of breaking it down last night, what bench spots the Yankees have remaining, assuming that they're going to go with 4 guys on the bench. We're looking at Higgy already having a spot, Gardner already having a spot, and I'm assuming Wade already has a spot as well because he's kind of the only guy who could play short. So then you look at the final spot and you got Tauchman, Ford, Greg Allen, Jay Bruce, and Derek Dietrich all fighting for that one last bench spot.
I tell you what, I like Derek Dietrich a lot.
So do I.
I like that guy a lot.
I don't like him, Derek. I love him.
I love him too. I'll tell you why. He's got that energy of like a guy like a Frazier, or he's got that same kind of swagger that the Yankees have been lacking. He's that guy who's going to fire up the bench, the Swisher type, but he can play all over the diamond and he can hit.
I wish he played shortstop.
Yeah. Well, he can fill in at second. I mean, I guess, you can always move depending on the shift. You can move Gio over to the shortstop position. I do think they're going to have to keep Wade. They might go with two infielders, but I like Dietrich. I hope there's a way to keep him on the team.
Let me ask you a solid question, though. Do you like Derek Dietrich because of him or because he has the same name as you, spelled the same way, too? Like, does that have anything to do with it?
It would provide me an opportunity to make some awesome swag that just said Derek. Like it just had my
because you don't know who the merch is for. Yeah. It could even be Jeter at that point. It could be Jeter, Dietrich, NYY recaps. You don't know. That's the whole point of it.
My hot take: Derek Dietrich is going to be the best guy to ever play for the Yankees named Derek.
Whoa! We're making a hot takes quick. Yeah. But let's touch on CJ's comment really quickly here. Baseball projections projects Gardner playing 134 games this year. That cannot happen. What do you guys think about it? Do you think he plays 134?
No way. I'll tell you why those projections happen is because they do them via algorithm. It's not like a couple of Yankees fans who are familiar with the team. It's some stat that grabs, who played left field for the Yankees last year and the year before, and it was Brett Gardner, and how many games did he average on the injured list or whatever, and it factors in all those things and his age and all that, and they spit out 134. I think he's going to play 50 or 60 games. And I think he's going to start. I think he's going to start 50 or 60 games. And here's why. I think he's going to play a lot in center field when Hicks has his annual trip to play golf for 2 weeks with a pulled oblique muscle, a pulled oblique that somehow he's hitting 400-yard golf shots in Pebble Beach during the hottest part of the year. Yeah, maybe Gardner gets the start for those couple weeks. And I think that he's going to, fill in a little bit in left. And, he's going to come in to play defense, to pinch run. He's going to come in against a tough sidearm right-handed pitcher who's maybe got a nasty slider, and Clint Frazier's, not swinging the bat so good that week. Then you might see Gardner, to get in there and neutralize the slider, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, because I believe it was today where Aaron Boone said Gardner's going to be getting a lot of playing time. So I don't know what that means, but I guess we'll just wait and see. Shout out to THG, Wicked 50 Cal, by the way. What's going on, guys? Two of my favorite YouTubers together. Listen, Pat and Derek, combo of the century here.
Hey, cheers to that.
What do you think about this? Trade for Kevin Gausman at the deadline if the Giants are out of it. He's a free agent next year.
I saw Gausman pitch in Baltimore a couple of years ago, and he shoved it. He absolutely shoved it. And I was sitting on the first base side about halfway up, and you can just see just from that angle how much sink he got on the ball. And he was consistently 95, 96. And the Yankees just couldn't do anything with it. So from that day, just how uncomfortable he made the Yankees look. I've been a Gausman fan. Is it Gausman or Gausman? I think it's Gausman.
I believe it's Gausman.
Gausman?
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Usually I like knowing how to pronounce names. Let me just look it up just to be sure.
Whenever they play Gausman or Gausman, I'm always watching the Yankees broadcast, and he's usually, there's usually two or three, David Cohn pronounces it one way, and Michael K.
On Baseball Reference, it's with a Z, so I believe that's Gausman.
Gausman, okay.
Gausman, yeah.
So Kevin Gausman, yeah, I've liked him. I don't think he would be that expensive if the Yankees need pitching. Also, they're going to have to figure out a way to unload some salary if they want to stay under the cap or whatever, the luxury tax, if they want to get somebody, because they're right at the brink now.
Yeah, I'd agree. There was another comment I wanted to. Oh, here we go. Wait, no, it wasn't that one. Here we go. Anthony's comment. I'm just so happy that we spent our money getting a lot of pitching and hitting pieces rather than just getting one pitcher like Trevor Bauer. I would agree with this 1,000%, because like up until mid-January, we were looking at the Yankees offseason as being like a catastrophe. They weren't making any moves. They were just dead silence. But since then, I mean, they've went the route and just acquired depth after depth after depth. I think they probably acquired maybe like 6 relievers that could be a valuable piece at the major league level. We're talking Kyle Barraclough, Adam Warren, Nestor Cortez Jr., Tyler Lyons, Justin Wilson. I'm definitely Darren O'Day. There's definitely others that are thrown in the mix there. Even Nick Goody. I mean, he has the potential to be decent at a major league level. So I think it was much better for the Yankees going into this offseason to go after depth rather than just getting a big fish like Bauer. And as much as we all did want Bauer, I think what they did this offseason was a much smarter route.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is sort of the influence of Matt Blake, where he's, getting with the analytics guys and they're looking at what is available. And they're saying, I like this guy's curveball. I like this guy's fastball. We might be able to give this guy a nasty slider. And they're saying, okay, what can we get cheap? I like the Kyle Barkley. He hasn't really been great since MLB made him change his delivery. Do you remember that a couple of years ago? He was or Bear Claw. He was jumping towards.
Oh, yes, that was him, right?
Yeah.
Was it him?
Yeah, I think it was, right?
I thought it was the guy from the Mariners that the Yankees got last year. What was his name? Chat. Someone in the chat has to know.
I'm pretty sure it was Bear Claw. I could be wrong.
That he would like slide or skip.
Yeah, there was somebody who he would jump towards home plate, and MLB made him change his, change his delivery.
Oh, the name's on the tip of my tongue, and it's annoying.
I thought it was Kyle Bearclaw.
It might have been. Oh, yeah. It was Guerin. It was Corey Guerin.
I think he also had an issue just like that.
Oh, Carter Capps.
There we go.
That's Carter Capps.
That's who I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah, he was on the Marlins around.
So then I don't really know much about Bearclaw then.
Yeah.
So, hey, we still some time. No. I do like the Justin Wilson thing. I feel like, he's pitched in Yankee Stadium before. He knows what that's all about. And I really like the Darren O'Day thing because he gives that different look other than a guy who just throws gas. You bring him in throwing 84, 85, and then you bring somebody in who's throwing 96, and it looks like 106.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that too. I mean, it's also so important, the Justin Wilson thing. The fact that before him, the Yankees didn't really have like a left-handed reliever that they could throw in the middle innings. Obviously, you have Chapman and Britton, but assuming Chapman's locked in for the 9th, Britton's locked in for the 8th, you didn't necessarily have a lefty if you want to bring out of the bullpen in the 6th, for example. Yeah. So I think having him as that kind of depth is pretty important. Also, I mean, he's a familiar face in the Bronx. Tongue twisted there. But yeah, I mean, we all know like this offseason was kind of the offseason of the Yankees reuniting with old familiar arms. I mean, like I mentioned, Tyler Lyons, Nestor Cortez Jr., Adam Warren, and Justin Wilson. I guess they like the familiarity. Why can't I say the word familiar tonight? Familiarity? I don't know.
Tell you what. I still think Domingo Germán, if he doesn't make the rotation, which he may, I think that he would be an absolutely lights out relief pitcher. He would be like a David Robertson type because he's got that mid-90s fastball and the nasty hook. That's really all you need to be a David Robertson type. And he's got a two-seamer that has wicked movement. So they'll probably put him in the rotation, but having missed a year plus, maybe they decide, let's ease him back in. And if he dominates out of the bullpen, maybe you leave him out there. You got David Garcia. I think Jameson Taillon is back. I think just watching him throw, and granted, he hasn't even faced a hitter yet, but just watching his biomechanics, there's a lot less stress on that elbow. Something else could break down. He could have a knee injury for whatever reason. But I feel like Taillon is back. I want to see Kluber get through a few starts before I really invest too much faith in him. But I feel like there's probably going to be one spot in that rotation. It might be Germán. It could be Garcia. It could be Clark Schmidt. Clark Schmidt looked good in his bullpen too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was just going to say. I mean, looking at the Yankees, we've been talking about all stream, honestly, the depth, especially like the starting pitching / relief depth, the way that they can interject any of these starters into the bullpen and vice versa. So looking at the Yankees rotation right now, I'm assuming it's shaped as followed. Cole, Kluber, Taillon, Monty, Devi. That's what I'm assuming it is right now. But then you also have so many options outside of that in case someone goes down, or like Boone kind of suggested, they could go with a 6-man rotation. So then you have options like Michael King, Domingo Germán, Clark Schmidt, Luis Severino, when he comes back, that's a topic for another day too. I think maybe they could put him in the bullpen if the rotation is at full strength. And then also even Loaizaga, he could be an opener, give you like 3 innings to start the game. So they definitely have a lot of options as far as that goes. It's just the health is key.
Yeah.
The health, Kluber and Tyone, they need to stay healthy.
I think that's why you're seeing the Yankees basically get so many arms. It's because, one of those guys, let's just go based on history. One of those guys is probably going to break down at least a little bit. The odds of those guys making 32 starts are pretty much the same odds as you or I making 32 starts. So it's good that they're going to have somebody to step in. I think Clark Schmidt could be that. I think you're going to see Clark Schmidt step up in a big way this year. He's going to make probably 5 to 10 starts, depending on, how many guys go in and out. He might not be on a regular rotation, but I could see him making 2 starts here, 3 starts there. And then if he pitches well, he really could be up for a spot in the rotation in the playoffs. Because in the playoffs, you just go with your best 4. That's it.
It's going to be interesting. Because I think Monty has kind of earned his spot in the rotation, especially after his postseason performance last year. And Devi, yes, but I think Devi is the biggest question mark in the rotation right now. If we see Devi start off the season pretty slow, which some people expect him to have like that sophomore slump, but I think Devi's going to be just fine. But if he does have that little slump, the Yankees might think about maybe, I don't want to say filling his role, but potentially maybe sending him down for more work and then bring up a guy like Clark Schmidt, and that could be his opportunity if he's performing very well in AAA.
So here's something to consider with Davey is that he's still rookie eligible. So if you hold him back in AAA, I think you can manage his service time and get an extra year out of him. And he's a guy who, based on his size, I don't think is going to have a very long career. Anyway, it'd surprise me if he pitches past 32. He's more of a Tim Lincecum type.
Yeah.
But, I could see the Yankees holding him out till May and letting somebody else start in the number 5 spot. And then when somebody inevitably needs a day off or whatever in May, you bring him up, or you say, we're going to go to a 6-man rotation for the next 8 weeks, and you bring Davey in there. I think Davey's going to factor in, and I don't think he's going to have much of a sophomore slump because his stuff is legit, people. His command is key. I know his sabermetric stuff didn't show like a great spin rate or whatever, but I think he's going to only improve that, being such a young guy and working with the best in the business. Plus, he's got how many Cy Young Award winners around him? He's got, Cole could win a Cy. He's got Kluber's 1, 2, and then you've got Matt Blake, who's the best pitching coach in the business. I don't know if you guys hear my cat in the background.
I think I saw your cat just walk in the door.
Yeah, he's meowing. Yeah. But yeah, I think Davey's going to benefit from a really good group of guys around him.
Yeah, I'd agree. Daniel has a hot take though. Derek Lowe was the best Derek to play for the Yankees.
Derek Lowe played for the Yankees.
Was that like it was the early 2010s? Maybe
it was end of his career, end of his run. He was one of those depth guys,
Yeah, I think it might have been around the same time as like Kerry Wood was a Yankee too, and he was pretty solid as far as 11-year-old Patrick remembers. He was pretty solid.
Kerry Wood was awesome as a Yankee. He's one of those guys who never really came back from Tommy John 100%. I wish you could have seen him in 1998. I watched that game where he struck out 20 guys, and his stuff. They didn't really have radar on every pitch back then, but I guarantee he was throwing 100 miles an hour with about an 89 mile an hour slider that would break 2 feet and a changeup that just dropped out of the sky. And he was hitting his spots with everything. I think the Astros had 1 infield hit the whole day. And then like 2 or 3 starts later, he strikes out 15 guys and then he snaps his elbow. And when he came back, he was good, but he didn't, that little extra bit that he had that nobody else had was gone.
Yeah. He had a 20K game, didn't he?
Yeah. 1998.
Yeah. Anthony has another comment. I think our bullpen is now better than 2017, 2019. We have Wilson, O'Day, Sessa, Lasagna, and Herman to set up Green and Britton and Chapman. It just looks great. I think, I don't know if I'm going to say better, but it's definitely deeper.
I'm going to miss Canely.
Oh, I miss Canely so much.
Canely was unhittable in 2017 with the Yankees. I mean, you're talking 98 mile an hour fastball with a changeup that was just disgusting. And this year he was great for a bit until he went out. I wish him luck with the Dodgers. I don't think he's going to pitch this year, but
no, yeah.
The Yankees, they don't have a Canely anymore.
Yeah, I mean, in my eyes, maybe like Derek Dietrich can kind of be like the hitting version of Tommy Kahnle. Like he
Yeah.
definitely has the potential for that. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like the Yankees don't have Kahnle anymore. I think rather than giving like Matt Bowman the same type of deal that Kahnle got, where it was like a 2-year deal, knowing that he's not going to pitch this year, just so he could rehab with the team, I would have much rather that go to Kahnle than Matt Bowman. But I don't know, it happens. But looking back at 2017, real quick, taking a Back to the Future kind of thing. Um, David Robertson was so good in 2017, like so underrated. I was looking at his stats a couple days ago because like the chat was talking about how much money they think D-Rob's going to get, and I just want to put his career into perspective. The dude has had an amazing career, like so low key. I think in 2017, after coming over, he had like a 1.03 ERA, like something stupid like that. And 2011 too. I think in 70 games he had like a 1.1 ERA or something like that.
Wow. Yeah, he I think was the first pitcher ever to go undefeated in maybe 5 or more decisions and strike out 100 batters, or something like that. He did it first, and then Tyler Clipper did it in the same year. And I don't think it's been done much other than that. But yeah, I was a big D-Rob fan. Plus, he had that High Socks for Hope for the cancer groups. He was a great community guy. He was just a great guy all around, and I miss him. But honestly, it wouldn't shock me if he came back, because the Yankees, like you said, loading up on depth. He's one of those guys. Maybe you can get him for $1.5 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But I'm kind of going in with the same mindset as I did with Trevor Rosenthal now. So I thought Trevor Rosenthal would have made tremendous sense for the Yankees. But as time went on, I kind of developed the idea, well, he makes perfect sense. However, if he wanted a decent amount of money, the Yankees would have signed him already. So he's obviously asking for too much, right? So I think D-Rob might kind of be the same scenario, especially after hearing how good he did at the showcase. He might be looking for a little bit more, because my assumption is if he was looking for $1.5 million, the Yankees would have signed him months ago. So I'm assuming he might be looking for maybe like $5 million.
Yeah, I mean, considering how late his workout is, maybe he was just kind of holding out, or maybe nobody was showing interest, at whatever his price was, so he wanted to go out and prove it so that he could get that extra dollar amount. But yeah, I mean, I wish him the best. I would love to see him come back, but I honestly, I think the Yankees are probably pretty solid in the bullpen. I've seen rankings that put the Yankees at number 1 in the bullpen, and they've only gotten stronger. So I feel like the bullpen's going to be okay. And most of those projections aren't even including Domingo Germán, who I think like people in August are going to be surprised when Domingo Germán has been dominating in the pen for 2 months.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting scenario. But let's go back to what I mentioned. I touched on it a little bit before about Luis Severino.
Yep.
So I do have this kind of idea that, let's say the rotation is in full strength by the time Sevy comes back, which I think is supposed to be like July, August, maybe. So it depends if the rotation's fully healthy. I think that if it is, it's very possible we see them throw Sevy. I think it was 2016 when they threw him in the bullpen, but it's very possible we could see them throw him in that same sort of situation, especially they don't want to like risk any further injuries with him. They might want to ease him back in, and I think maybe the bullpen could be a good way of doing that.
Yeah, we'll see how the rest of the rotation looks. I mean, if you've got 4 solid starters, I mean, let's just play the hypothetical game where it's August 1st, and Garrett Cole, Corey Kluber, Jordan Montgomery are all having pretty good years. Jameson Taillon has done enough to stay in the rotation. And then you've got maybe Davey Garcia's having an average year, or Clark Schmidt has stepped up and done a really good job. And you've got Luis Severino coming back, and you're thinking, well, we need to limit his innings anyway. How can he best fit us? Going in for 1 or 2 innings at a time down the stretch might be the way to ease him in. They might try and work him up if they have a nice lead in the division. Let's say they're up by 5 or 6 games. They might try and stretch him out over the final few starts, where they give him 4 innings and then 5 innings and then 6 innings, so that maybe he could get a playoff start if they want to do that, if he's throwing really well. But he could also be an X factor out of the bullpen for the playoffs. We've seen guys do that before, where they, Phil Hughes in 2009. Yeah. Remember, he was a starter, and they moved him to the bullpen, and he was throwing much better out of the bullpen. And he helped them a lot in the playoffs. Jabba Chamberlain was a starter by nature. Out of the bullpen, it gives you that extra bit. And when he's not having to stretch him out after coming back from Tommy John, I think it's a smart move. I think long-term, he's definitely their number 2. I think next year he's definitely their number 2, but you might be onto something. I think he's probably going to get a lot of time out of the bullpen this year.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting scenario. But now I do want to talk about the lineup. So listen, I don't know. I'm assuming most of you guys already do follow Derek. Awesome content. I'm going to pop Derek's video from today up on the screen. And it's basically about the Yankees lineup going into next season, right? So you kind of gave like a lineup preview. I think for the most part, the lineup is kind of set in stone. But there is kind of some things that can be interlocked. What do you think? Like of the current, do you think the current lineup is set in stone? Do you think there's some things that can be battled over? What do you think?
So I think the positions are mostly set in stone. I think the order, there's some flexibility. The thing I got the most pushback on was, I'll just go through my lineup real quick. I've got DJ leading off. I've got Judge second, obviously second in right field. Third, I put Aaron Hicks, and that seemed to be the controversial thing, but I did it because he's on base so much. Fourth, I've got Luke Voit and then Giancarlo Stanton. Sixth, I've got Gleyber Torres, and then Frazier batting seventh, Sanchez eighth, and Gio Urshela ninth. Now, the things I got the most pushback on were that Aaron Hicks was batting third. A lot of people think he just doesn't hit for a high enough average to hit third, but he gets on base. Not in the middle of the order, breaking up the righties and getting on base is really important. So, and seeing a lot of pitches right in front of Stanton and Gleyber and all these guys who need to get a look. So that's why I put him there. And Boone may or may not do that. And then I got some crap over having Gio Urshela batting ninth when you've got Gary Sanchez who hit 147. And my thought is in the National League, a lot of times they hit the pitcher eighth because you want somebody at the bottom of the order who can turn the lineup over. And let's say Gary Sanchez does have a bad year. He ends up making the third out of the inning a lot of times. And, the next inning, you've got two guys coming up, basically in Gio and in DJ LeMahieu, who are practically 300 hitters or better right in front of Judge. So you're basically creating a fresh 1, 2, 3 throughout the order, with the exception of the number 8 spot. It's kind of the worst spot in the order. But really, you could have a very, very well-rounded order, despite the fact that you don't have many lefties.
I would agree. I would agree. I watched your video today, and honestly, I agree 1,000%. I think the Yankees lineup right now is kind of like a blessing and a curse, right? You have so many great hitters, but also what goes along with that is you have so many guys who are locked into spots, and it kind of prevented them from gaining any sort of flexibility this offseason. So a guy like Michael Brantley, for example, I would have loved. But the only issue is the Yankees lineup, you have guys locked into spots, so you have Stan locked in the DH role. So that kind of takes Brantley out of the equation. Frazier's kind of locked in left, takes Brantley out of the equation. Hicks is locked in center and Judge is locked in right. Unfortunately, these guys have past injury history, and you could kind of consider them injury prone. So, but unfortunately, at the same time, you have to go into the season assuming that they're going to be healthy.
Right.
So that's the real tough thing when examining the Yankees lineup going into this offseason. We have these players that are considered top of the line, but at the same time, they're also injury prone. So it leaves a very interesting discussion as to how to give any sort of preview without knowing what the health is going to be.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons they got Gardner, is because he can be a starter in the event somebody gets hurt. I think that it's great that they didn't trade Clint Frazier because, the sky's the limit for that guy. And Aaron Judge, I think, doing the yoga and committing himself to staying healthy and realizing that it's been a problem and playing for a contract now over the next couple of years, he's got to be playing for that next big contract. Does he want to make $300 million, or does he want to be a guy that bounces from contract to contract because he can't stay healthy? So I think he's going to be healthy. I think he's going to do what it takes to be healthy. If that means taking a few days off here and there, then you're going to see it. But I think the Yankees have enough outfield depth. And I still like Estevan Florial a lot more than most people do. I get that he strikes out a lot, but I like his tools. And most importantly, he can play defense. So, I feel like the Yankees are set in the outfield. The only concern I have on the entire team is catcher. Because, and defensively at catcher. Because I think Gary Sanchez is going to get the bulk of the starts. And I think that he still can't catch. And the other thing that slightly concerns me is the health of the rotation, because that's always going to be a concern. But, you could have solidified that by signing a Bauer, but then you couldn't have done all this other stuff. So, I think Cashman made the smart play. And I think the Yankees are going to be fine. I think they're going to be all right.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Gary Sanchez, like this is a topic that everyone and their grandmother is talking about, right? Who do you think starting on opening day right now, Higgy or Gary?
Higashioka.
You think so?
Yeah. I think just as a former pitcher, how much sway I have with a manager when I'm preparing for my start and I'm working with somebody and Higgy's been the guy I've had the most success with. They know each other a long time. I get that opening day is kind of a ceremonial thing, but Gary Sanchez should have hit better than 147 if he wanted to get the ceremonial treatment. You've got to do better.
I mean, listen, it's just so interesting because here's my thing. Like we know the potential of Gary Sanchez. We've seen him light up the entire baseball world, be one of the top hitters in the league. However, we've also seen him be one of the worst hitters in the league. So I think what happens with Gary this year is pivotal to the Garrett Cole Higgy relationship. Because if Gary has an amazing season, right? We're talking possibly like a 2017 year. Let's say he hits 35 bombs, bats 240 with 100 RBIs. There's no way that they can leave Gary out of that lineup game one of the ALDS. There's just no way you could do it. So, but it's also complicated because if you don't let Cole pitch to Gary at any point this season, their first game together can't be game one of the ALDS.
Yeah, well, it's worth noting that Gary caught Cole's first bullpen of the year, so maybe they're trying to make it work this spring. Honestly, as a pitcher, I've had relationships with certain catchers that they just think along the lines that you're thinking. That's what it's more about. It's not about whether or not they can block balls in the dirt. It's whether or not they got the balls to call the ball in the dirt, for a strikeout pitch, or how to work a hitter and how they frame a pitch. The way your ball moves, everybody's ball moves a little bit different. Everybody's got a little bit different tail or sink or cut, and certain catchers can catch the ball different ways. The way that Higashioka receives the ball, if you watch footage of him, he moves his nose behind his glove. So the pitch is coming in, he shifts his nose, so his whole body's a target. So to the umpire, it looks like the pitch is hitting Higashioka right square in the chest, right where he's set up, because the ump's watching that ball going through the zone, and his mind is connecting that mental image of where it's connecting with the glove, and he doesn't consciously take that into account where the pitch is being caught, because you're not supposed to. But your brain unconsciously will create that linear line of, he caught this in the strike zone. He caught this squared up perfectly. It must be a strike. And that's why he gets more pitches called. And I think that makes a big difference to a guy who's a strikeout pitcher who wants to preserve his bullets. I think it's going to be Higashioka against the Jays, a division rival. I don't think you play around. I think you start Higashioka, and in the sixth inning, you pinch hit for him with Sanchez if the Yankees.
Let's say Gary has an amazing spring training, a Greg Bird-esque spring training. Then what? You're still not starting him opening day?
If his spring training is great defensively, and he's worked with Garrett Cole, and because that's what it's going to come down to on opening day. The Yankees are going to score some runs on opening day. They always do. They always come out hyped. That offense, when everybody's healthy, I bet they're up 5-0 by the third inning. That's just how it usually is on opening day for the Yankees. But if I'm Garrett Cole, I'm pitching for a Cy Young. I want to win this game. I want to come out on opening day in front of fans at Yankee Stadium for the first time. I want my partner behind the plate that I've worked so well with, that I had my career or best game with the Yankees last year against the Indians. And that's just how it is. And I'm sorry if that hurt your feelings, Gary, but you should have, hey, it is what it is. That's just how it goes. Ask Jorge Posada how he felt when Jim Leyritz was catching Andy Pettitte.
Yeah, also, what's his name? Jose Molina was catching AJ Burnett.
Right.
Yeah,
and, there's always been guys like that. Mike Stanley used to be the starting catcher for the Yankees, and they used to go to the backup for Jimmy Key, I think. And so it's a lot of times the best pitcher on the staff works best with the best defensive catcher on the staff. And most of the time, that's the guy who doesn't hit quite as well, and he's just there for his defense, and that's the backup. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, since we're kind of on the catcher position here, I've been talking all offseason, and I was a little bit confused as to where the Yankees were going to turn as far as their third string catcher goes, because you always need to have at least like a veteran guy. They signed Robertson Chirinos. I'm a little bit confused as to how he's going to play into the whole situation as well, because he has very good career numbers against Garrett Cole as well. I believe that he's probably just going to be looking at like mostly AAA playing time if he even accepts the minor league assignment after spring training. But I think he could play a big role. Let's say if Higgy gets injured, or B, Gary gets injured.
Yeah.
I think then it creates an interesting conversation between Chirinos and Higgy, who becomes Cole's personal catcher.
He's just this year's Eric Kratz, in my opinion. I mean, they needed a backup, and Garrett Cole probably said, "Hey, my ex-personal catcher is available." And one thing that Chirinos, has is good defense. He might be able to come in and work with Gary Sanchez a little bit to say, "Hey, I've caught Garrett Cole before. Here's some things that worked for me." And he's a guy who obviously speaks Spanish and might be able to communicate a little bit better with Gary than Higashioka can. So I mean, all these little interpersonal things are things we don't normally think of as fans, but there's these little interconnected things that could relationships that can spawn improvements in different players. So just something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned about how Chirinos could possibly be a benefit to Gary, I think that's also a very underrated aspect of the acquisition as well. So yeah, that's definitely something to note. Anthony has a comment again. Since my two favorite YouTubers are in a collab, can you guys both make a Yankee MVP, Cy Young, and comeback player prediction? Derek, you want to go first?
Is this team MVP or
I believe this is, since he said Yankee, I believe
Okay.
it's like a team MVP kind of thing.
Okay, so obviously the Cy Young is Garrett Cole. So at the end, I think that's pretty much but we'll just throw him out and say the next best. How about we do that? Right?
Go for it. Yeah.
I think Jameson Taillon's going to have a big year. I think he's going to step up. I also think Jordan Montgomery's going to have a big year. But you know what? I'm going to change. I'm going to go with Jordan Montgomery. I just like his peripherals really a lot. I think he's going to be the Yankees' best pitcher other than Garrett Cole. I think he wins 16 games. I think he has an Andy Pettitte type year. Maybe 16 and 7. 3.47 ERA, something like that. That's kind of what I'm predicting from Jordan Montgomery. In terms of MVP, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Gleyber bounces back, and I think he has one of those, 45 homer seasons, maybe 320 average. Maybe a big year for the young stud. And then let's say comeback player of the year. I think Giancarlo Stanton could be in for. I think if he gets anywhere close to 500 at bats, he's going to hit 40 home runs.
Yeah, easy. Before I do give my predictions, I just want to say that the Yankees probably have the most comeback player guys like in all of baseball.
Yeah, you don't want to have. That's not a category you want to lead the league.
No.
Those comeback player of the year candidates.
But if we're looking at it as a whole, we're talking Judge, Stanton, Gary, Kluber, Taillon.
Gleyber,
Sevy, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's just so many options here. It's ridiculous. But as far as MVP, I'm going to go the easy route. I apologize, chat. I'm going to say Aaron Judge. I think that this is finally the year we see him put it all together and win his second MVP, because 2017 he won MVP, just saying. Cy Young, since we're taking Cole out of the equation, I think I'm going to go Taillon. I think he's going to have an awesome year. I just have a really good gut feeling about him. I think if we're comparing Taillon and Kluber, I think Taillon's going to have the better year out of the two. And then comeback player prediction, I could go the easy route again and just say Taillon for both. But comeback player, I'm going to say, Derek, I hate to do it, but I'm going to say Giancarlo Stanton with you. I think that I'm going to go the optimistic route. I'm going to say that he's going to have a fully healthy season as well as Judge, and a fully healthy. I mean, if Judge and Stanton are both fully healthy in the same lineup,
it's gonna be nuts.
We're talking about two MVP candidates back to back. Easy.
I just get that feeling with Stanton, and I got this last year in the playoffs. When he first came back, it seemed like he was a little tentative, but the way he was attacking the baseball down the stretch, he hit that big double near the end of the season, just a laser beam into the gap. And then he starts to heat up against the Indians, and he started to get that look in his eye like he had with the Marlins, where it was just like, where are you going to throw it? Where can you possibly get me out? And if you throw him a slider in the dirt, he just spit on it. And then if you threw something over the plate, he hit it 9 miles. And he just had this look in his eye like, that's what I do, bro. And I feel like if he's healthy at all, and he's been focused on getting healthy, I feel like he's just going to, I think he's going to come into this year on a mission to shut a lot of mouths.
But that's what I was going to say. I mean, like Giancarlo Stanton just doesn't have a chip on his shoulder. He has an entire can of Pringles. Like that's what I'm saying. Like after 2018, he still got ripped to shreds after kind of carrying the entire team when Judge was gone. 2019, ripped to shreds, not only after missing almost the entirety of the season, but then getting injured in the playoffs again. 2020, ripped to shreds once again after getting injured. So now he has a can of Pringles chips on his shoulder. And I hope 2021's a year he really just busts out.
It reminds me, and it's a little bit different situation, but A-Rod. A-Rod wins the MVP in 2007. He hits 54 home runs. He goes, I think, 1 for 16 in the playoffs. 2008, he has another kind of down year. Hits 30 home runs. Again, I don't think they even made the playoffs in 08. And,
no, yeah.
and he had that hip surgery and the suspension, or actually it was like a steroid admission or something like that in 2009. And he'd had all these problems with Jeter, and he just showed up and he said, you know what? Screw it. I don't care what anybody says about me. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to be A-Rod and I'm going to mash. And he led him to a World Series championship. And I just feel like Stanton is that same type of guy. You don't get to be that good. You don't get to be MVP and hit 59 home runs unless you know how to get up off the mat, unless you know how to work. And I feel like he said, okay, now's my chance to win over these fans and stay on the field. And I feel like he's going to seize that.
I hope Gary has that same mentality going in this season.
He does
too.
He does.
But I hope, like, maybe they should throw him in the yoga class with Judge and Stanton. Just have like a trio yoga class.
First of all, I want to apologize to everybody who's watching this, who's used to me having the beard. I went to shave today, and I had the setting wrong, and so I did like a buzz, and I had this like, I had this weird like, so I had to take it off. And I hate it because I've got this weird shaped face and just like extra calzone pandemic weight. So I look terrible on stream tonight. But what were we talking about? I've had too much whiskey.
We were talking about
Gary Sanchez.
Gary in the yoga class.
Yeah. So look, I think Gary's in shape. I've seen some pictures of Gary. He's lost some weight. My thing with Gary isn't that he's out of shape. It's never been that he's lazy. He always, I think, works hard. He comes into camp in shape. There's two things that bug me about Gary Sanchez. One is his pitch recognition, because he cannot lay off the slider in the dirt. And last year it extended to he can't lay off the high fastball. He was in between all year. So that's number one. And number two is he sucks at catching. He's a catcher. And I get that the peripherals say he's positive every year. But we talked about this. Every time we talk, I tell you this. Every game, 7th, 8th inning, there's somebody on second base. Gary lets one go through the wickets, and that guy gets over to third. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that twice a week somebody scores because he can't block a curveball. I don't like that Sonny Gray became a Cy Young candidate on another team because Gary Sanchez couldn't catch his goddamn curveball. That's my problem with Gary Sanchez. Not that he's fat.
Derek, I'm going to be honest. I don't really see you rant too often, but when you do, it's quality content. So I appreciate you bringing that to my channel tonight. But comments are kind of interested. Derek, where do you get a decent calzone in WF? Not too sure what WF is, but where do you get a decent calzone?
So I'll share with WF. Wake Forest, North Carolina. There's a place called Bella Italia, which is off of, I think, Rogers Road in Wake Forest. There's this little Italian place. It's privately owned. The guy behind the counter has been giving me calzones twice a week, and he's the best. He's the best.
It's amazing. So shout out to them for the great calzone.
Shout out to Bella Italia.
But yeah, I think what Lori brings up here is also an interesting scenario as far as Gary goes. I love how this is kind of turned into like a Gary breakdown here, but he doesn't know how to make in-game adjustments, and I think that's the case defensively and offensively. I don't know if you've looked back at any tape of Gary, 2016, even 2017, mid-at-bat, he would make adjustments. So we would see toe tap Gary one pitch. Next pitch, we would see leg kick Gary. He's abandoned that completely in favor of the leg kick. So he needs to just learn how to make adjustments like mid-game and mid-at-bat, and just so he could adapt to the situation rather than just taking all this stuff that he doesn't practice and trying to put it all together at once.
Gleyber Torres is a guy who he should watch because Gleyber Torres, if you notice, he has the big leg kick. He kind of looks almost like an old Julio Franco type for the first 2 strikes. But once he gets 2 strikes, the leg kick goes away. He comes down in his stance a little bit to make the zone smaller, and he's looking for the off-speed pitch, right? And his thought is to foul off the fastball and catch a hanger before it breaks and line it somewhere. That's what his approach is. Or it's just basically, hit fastball, react curve. It's one of those two. But he's basically adjusting for 2 strikes. He's not trying to hit the ball in the bullpen every time. And Gary Sanchez, no matter what the count, no matter what the situation, is trying to hit the ball 500 feet. And to me, that's not baseball. Baseball is, you've got to know what the pitcher is thinking is trying to get you out with, right? Joe DiMaggio used to swing through pitches early in the game so that later in the game, the pitcher would throw him that same pitch and he'd be thinking going into that bat, okay, I swung through the curveball in the second inning. I'm going to see that curveball again. He'd go up there looking for it and he'd crush it. Excuse me. And so Gary Sanchez just needs to think like a hitter. I know a lot of people say that he doesn't have the head for baseball, for catching and stuff like that. He's obviously got the physical talent. I think he's probably got plenty of intelligence to make adjustments. It's just the willpower. It's the willpower to say, okay, I lost this at bat. I'm down 2 strikes. I need to do something to help my team and not think about being in a highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to hit a home run right now. I need to get a base hit. I need to do something constructive. I need to at least have a good at bat. And that's, to me, what's been missing from Gary Sanchez.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we kind of beat the Gary Sanchez topic to death tonight. So I do want to move on to another guy that we just mentioned, and that's Gleyber Torres. Another guy. I mean, the Yankees just have so many players going into this season that this is a key year for them. I could probably name 5 guys in the lineup and five guys between the rotation and the bullpen. But Gleyber Torres is a very interesting one because going into the 2020 season, it was his first year as the Yankees shortstop of the future. We saw a lot of defensive woes. He wasn't kind of like the same hitter that we were expecting him after 2019. So this is a big year for Gleyber. Do you think that there's any possibility, let's say he has another poor defensive year or poor offensive year, do you think that the Yankees are going to look at this awesome free agent class after the 2020-2021 season and kind of rethink the whole Gleyber at shortstop experiment, or do you think he's just here to stay regardless of performance?
Well, I think that there's almost infinite number of outcomes at this point in the season. He could have a bad year, but he could also have a great year. There could be any number of things that affect what the Yankees' plans are next offseason. If Judge has a monster year, the Yankees are going to need to hand out a big contract. So that would make them less likely to go out and sign a shortstop when they already have one. The thing about Gleyber Torres that I find encouraging is that he's still young. He's still just, I think, 24 years old. And he's been around a while, so we fans write him off. I can tell you, just from experience, you become so much better athletically between the ages of 24 and, let's say, 28. I think if he can just stay in shape, I think he's going to be fine. He's going to get better at reading pitches. He's going to mature as a man. He's going to become more financially stable. He's probably going to, I think he's already got a daughter or a son or daughter. So he's probably, he's going to have more kids. He's going to mature. And everything affects his approach. He's going to realize at some point that his job isn't to be a superstar. He's like, when you're growing up in the Dominican or wherever he grew up, I'm sure he's thinking, I want to be a famous baseball player. I want to be rich. Well, now you're rich and you're famous. What's left? I need to develop as a human being. I need to take my job seriously. I need to learn the nuances of my sport and my game because it's my profession. And I think that he's going to get better defensively. I think he's a smart kid. He's got a really good makeup. I think he's going to make the adjustments necessary to become what everyone thought he could become.
I would agree. I would agree on every level. And just like you picked Gleyber as your MVP, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely has potential to be the best hitter on the Yankees this season.
I think there's a lot more in Gleyber than we've seen offensively. I think, the way he works the count, I could see him walking 85 times too. I could see him having, the way he uses the whole field. I could see him hitting between 290 and 310, honestly. I could see it would not surprise me if at the end of the year, Gleyber's stat line reads something like this: 292 average, 42 home runs, 115 RBIs, 7.5 wins above replacement. If he plays league average defense.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you just in the sense of the home runs. I don't see him hitting over 40 home runs. Just because like looking at like his minor league profile before coming up to the majors, he was never necessarily touted as a guy who had any sort of pop.
He hit 38. He hit 38 2 years ago. He's stronger now.
I just don't know if he's that guy though. I don't know if he's that guy.
I tell you, he's that guy.
Is he? Are you gonna bank on it?
All right, here's what we're gonna do. And I'll give you all season to prepare for this. If Gleyber plays at least 100 and let's say 145 games,
okay,
I say he hits better than 39.5 home runs. You're gonna take the under?
I think I'll take the under. Yeah.
Okay. So loser does 20 push-ups on camera on his stream.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Oh, I thought it was gonna be bad. Like usually my bets are like I'll dump water on my head and then I always end up losing. But yeah, I'll do 20 push-ups on stream easily.
All right, there we go.
All right, perfect.
All right.
THG actually has a good comment here. If Gleyber gets those numbers, where is he batting in the lineup? Because where do you have him right now? 6?
I've got him 6th, but I don't think he needs to be any higher because this lineup is so deep. I mean, these guys get 4 and 5 at bats a game, everybody, because the lineup hits so well. And I think that after working your way through, Judge, Voit, Hicks, Stanton, maybe you're ready to let off the gas a little bit against the guy who hit 241 with 3 home runs last year. And I think that's going to be a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, just like we mentioned, I mean, a guy like Luke Voit, that's another question mark going into the season. I mean, do we think that he is going to replicate his 2020 season? Because personally, I don't want to be a pessimist here, but I think 2020 was the best that we'll probably see of Luke Voit. I don't see him replicating that. I don't think Luke Voigt's like a 50 home run guy. I just don't. I think a great season out of Voit this year will be like, give me like a 250 average, give me 35 home runs.
So I think he's going to hit for a little higher average, even though he's on record. He doesn't even care about his average, but he's always been a guy that hits, hits for a pretty high average in the minor leagues. He's done pretty well in the bigs, in terms of contact. I've said on my channel that 45 is within reach because I think it's in his range of possibilities. You know how before the election they say, oh, so-and-so could get from 270 to 330, whatever it is. I feel like his range is 35 to 45 home runs. So 45 is probably on the high end, but I think if he plays a full season, 35 is on the low end. I think he's probably, if I had to bet, I'd say Luke Voigt's probably a 268 hitter this year. I'd say probably 37, probably 90 RBIs. And he probably is going to have some issues because he's had issues every year. And, from the hernia to the feet, he's just a big, strong dude. And when you're moving around that much, things are gonna get messed up. So if he plays 135, 140 games and hits 37 bombs, I think that's a successful year for Luke Voit.
Yeah, it's still so crazy. I mean, looking back at the 2019 postseason, Luke Voit was not there. I believe he was healthy at the time, but he didn't really have enough at-bats going into the postseason. So I believe he was just on the bench. But it's crazy that he had no part of that. And then 2020, he was the MVP of the team.
Well, he the thing was in 2019 was the hernia. So he was back, but he ended up having surgery after the year. He came back to, I don't know if you know what a hernia is.
Isn't it like, can't you get it from like lifting weights?
It's gross. It's when your organs come through the outer wall of your abdomen. It's really, really painful, and you need surgery for it usually. And he had surgery. And so he tried to come back and just make his core strong. He was sitting there doing sit-ups and medicine ball lifts and all this crap with a hernia, trying to get himself back in the lineup. And he came back.
Dude's an animal.
He still hit major league pitching. That's what I'm saying. He's not human. These people, these Yankees are physically abnormal species. And that's why they get hurt so much, is because they're just on the far spectrum of what human beings can do.
No, yeah. I mean, listen, at this point, I know Judge and Stanton are taking yoga. I mentioned throwing Gary into that class, but it's just have a whole group session of yoga. Like, how can it hurt at this point? Like, throw Darren O'Day in there. He might look a little creepy, but it's fine. Like,
Aaron Boone does yoga. Aaron Boone's a yoga guy.
Bro, I was gonna say that he's probably the one who suggested it.
He goes home and he turns on those sounds of Enya and this incense. and he's doing that transcendental meditation, and he's doing his yoga. You know he does that. Come on.
After
Nobody can be in that good a mood all the time. And
you know what he does after a huge loss? He goes home, turns on his TV, and he goes on YouTube and he types in 10 hours of ocean sounds.
Yeah.
And that's what he listens to for the entirety of the night. Just does some yoga, relaxes. He doesn't let anything get to him.
It's either that or he goes home and he's got a boxing dummy and he hits it with a sledgehammer for like 2 hours. Just all
right. All right, chat. I do think that's gonna wrap things up for us tonight. Shout out to Derek for stopping by. If you guys don't already follow him, NYY recaps on YouTube. I'm not lying when I say he produces easily the best content out of any Yankee YouTube creator, any baseball, any creator in general, if we're being honest with each other. But you guys do know the deal. I am going live on Twitch now, twitch.tv/Unhinged New York. Not sure we're going to play, but we're going to have a good time as usual. Also, stay tuned on Derek's channel. We have a podcast on there. It's called 643DP. We have fairly often episodes of that podcast go up.
Yeah, we've done 4 or 5. I think once the season starts, I'm thinking weekly, something like that.
Yeah. Also, chat, we're like less than 100 subscribers away from 1,000 at this point. Really appreciate it if you guys help me get there. The goal was originally before opening day. I think we'll probably hit it before that. So shout out to all you guys for that. As you guys know, we go live every night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Uploads every day at 12 p.m. And it's gonna wrap things up. We will see you guys next time. Once again, shout out Derek for hopping on, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Work on those push-ups, man. Work on those push-ups.
I'm gonna get ready. Peace out, guys.
Later, man.